Greetings, fellow CarNut. Welcome to the MG4. Yeah, it's a very bold thing, isn't it, huh? All edgy and angular. It's a good look, I reckon. Looks very modern indeed. This particular MG4 we're in is a 64 kilowatt hour Essence. In New Zealand, it costs $54,990, and you get a clean car rebate on that, of course, which brings the price down to $47,975, so just under $48,000. It's a full battery electric vehicle, and as the 64 kilowatt hour battery spec gives you a clue to, it has a reasonable amount of range. So I thought we'd take this rear-wheel drive MG4 for a bit of a tool around and see what it delivers. Funny thing is, when you hop in the MG4, there's no start-stop button to push, and it confused me initially, but basically what happens is as soon as the key is inside the car, like in your pocket or handbag or whatever, and you put your foot on the brake pedal, the car lights up on the dashboard and says ready. That's all it needs to get you going. Similarly, when you get out at the other end, there's no off button, of course. So to stop the car and to power it down, there's two ways you can do it. The most obvious way is just to get out and lock the car, and if you do that, it'll power itself off, and the mirrors will fold up and sort of acknowledge that the car's turned off. But if you want to sit there, not want to get out, you can go into the menu and then power off the car manually that way. So a bit of a faff, but I've found I've used that dashboard way of just turning the power off occasionally, because I don't like to sit in a full battery electric vehicle that's a long way away from home, which is where I am now, with it just sitting there tuning through power, like on the air conditioning and the radio and stuff, unnecessarily. I want to reserve all those 64 kilowatt hours in the battery for travel down the road. Now, this car is powered by a nickel manganese cobalt battery. Now, why is that even remotely interesting to you? Because nickel manganese cobalt batteries don't like being charged to 100% of their capacity. What it does is it shortens their life. So it's advised that you only go to 80 or 90% of the maximum capacity of your battery. If, on the other hand, your car is powered by a lithium iron phosphate battery, then yes, you can go to 100% charge all the time. But with this particular battery type, 80 or 90%. So when you say, okay, it's only going to be charged to 80, maybe 90% of its capacity, what does that actually mean for the range of this car? Well, the WLTP figure for this car, which is like the brochure figure that all the manufacturers use, is 435 k's of range. But we know those WLTP figures, like the brochure figures for internal combustion engine vehicles, are a little bit difficult to attain in the real world. They probably don't have the headlights on, they probably don't have the heated steering wheel on, they probably don't have the wipers going, the radio going, all those sort of draws on the current of the car or the energy of the car, which can reduce its range. So you take about somewhere between 15, maybe 20% off that for a real world figure. So the real world figure of the MG4's range in this spec is about 360 kilometers. Now that's if the battery has been charged to 100%, but because we're only charging to 80 or 90%, that comes down even more to a real world range of 330 kilometers. So we've lost 100 kilometers in the real world off what the brochure says the range of this car would be. So I jumped into it this morning before this trip, as I say, down country to Hamilton. It was fully topped up. Sorry MG, that's probably taken a little bit of life off the battery of this car, but anyway, I wanted to juice it up maximum because frankly I'm going to be using most of that, pretty much all of it today, to get back again. And it showed me that I had a range this morning when I set out of 335 kilometers. Now, I've done 171 kilometers, so pretty much bang on half that 335, and I'm at 53% of my battery, and I've got 189 k's remaining. So yeah, it's going to be a close call. It has been raining this morning. I've had the headlights on, I've had the wipers going. I haven't been driving particularly economically. I've just had it in normal mode. I've been down the Waikato Expressway, which is either 100 or 110 km/h speed. So those higher vehicle speeds aren't where battery electric vehicles are their most efficient. They're most efficient at slow speed, running around towns, lots of stop-start traffic, of course. So I'm kind of interested / frightened about how much range I'm really going to enjoy, but I'm not going to turn this video into a range anxiety video because, as we know, this car is not really intended for longer road trips. And if you do, you just have to use a public charging station. Now, I'm averse to public charging stations, so I'm going to try and do this road trip today without using a public charging station. That's why I have a little bit of range anxiety, but that's just me. Yes, okay, I'm a wimp. I relented and charged the car up because frankly, there was no way I was going to be able to get home this evening with the amount of battery I had left. So another $10 or $12 or whatever it was on the fast charger at the gas station, and we're good for another 259 k's, which will be more than enough to get us home. So there we go. After all my tough talk about not having range anxiety, that's exactly what I had. Normally in cars, I tend to put the seat right down at the bottom of its travel. It's got electric seat here. But in this car, right down low is like really low, and I feel sort of dwarfed by the waistline here. So I'm just bringing the seat up a bit to give me a bit more visibility over the dash. But it's a good visibility out the front. A-pillars slope a long way away from you out the front there. The rear 3/4 visibility, not particularly good. If you're reversing, you're going to be relying on that 360-degree camera that comes with this car. It's a pretty airy cockpit. You would think that the car is quite claustrophobic maybe from looking at it from outside, particularly front on, because it looks very narrow from the front. It looks kind of a bit like that, you know, it's a bit sort of squeezed in, but that's really more of a factor of the height of the car than the absolute width, because inside it's actually doesn't feel narrow at all. It's not like you're sitting right up against the passenger here. Quite a long wheelbase. The wheels pushed out to both ends of the chassis with short overhangs, so you've got quite a lot of passenger space, which is what you want from a small runaround car. The steering wheel is a 2-spoke design. It's got a flat bottom and a flat top, which is kind of novel. I haven't come across a steering wheel that's got a flat top to it before. What else do you see when you're in the cockpit here? Well, you've got 2 screens in front of you. That's where I think the MG4 lets itself down. The information is not particularly clear. It's very cluttered, and you can't, as far as I can see, clean that design up with your own user choosings. And some of the text is very small. We've got multiple buttons on the steering wheel here to adjust the various displays and to select things, but it does confuse me, and I come across a lot of different cars and I don't really have a problem getting to interact and achieve what I want to with them. But this car, it has frustrated me in a number of things. There's just an odd way that this infotainment system works, and the way that this information here displays, and the way that these buttons on the steering wheel control aspects of the vehicle. So yeah, just be aware. It's going to take some learning, I suspect, for most people to get to grips with all the technology on board here. The interface is also a bit laggy. Sometimes the touch response is not there, so it's multiple touches of the screen to get it to do things, and it's just frustrating. And because these electric cars have so much functionality stored in these sorts of touchscreen panels, you want them to be really good, and in this case, it's not. It's a rear-wheel drive car, this particular model. It's the one I wanted because I feel that the edgy looks and the kind of the modern design of the MG4 might appeal to younger people. And I wondered if younger people might expect a bit more of a kind of interesting drive experience. So rather than just a front-wheel drive one or an all-wheel drive one, I wanted to go for a rear-wheel drive electric vehicle, and that's what this car is. And I have taken it out on some windy roads today in the wet, and I gotta say, it's great. You get that nice little tuck in of the nose into a corner if you put a little bit of extra throttle pedal into it, and the car is actually really satisfying to drive in a kind of a sporty fashion. The all-wheel drive one that's available is a lot faster. This is like a 7.2 second to 100k car. I think the all-wheel drive one's something like, I don't know, 3.9 or 4 something seconds to 100k, so considerably faster. More expensive too, of course. But to my mind, this is the sweet spot because it's just rear-wheel drive. It's not too expensive, under 48 grand with your clean car rebate. And it mainly, from my point of view, it rewards with an appealing drive. It's quite sophisticated. It's got a McPherson strut front suspension and a 5 multi-link rear suspension setup. So, you know, the chassis dynamics are really good. It rides comfortably. It's got nice damping. It doesn't feel wallowy in corners. It's really quite well planted. It doesn't have a choppy ride. It's not overly stiff. Nothing bangs and crashes even when you go over one of our frequent potholes in New Zealand. This Essence trim MG4 has 18-inch wheels, so it rides on 235/45 18-inch tyres. So you think that 45 profile might offer a bit of a choppy ride. It doesn't. It's actually not brittle on slow-speed city roads like we're on now. Also on highway roads out in the country, I've found the ride more than agreeable. It's really sophisticated, and MG's to be congratulated for that because it's a good look on those 18-inch wheels, and you do not pay a penalty as far as ride quality goes. The steering, of course, has no real feel to it, but it's accurate in placement and it holds corner lines nicely. You can always adjust those slightly with your throttle pedal as you would do in a rear-wheel drive car, internal combustion rear-wheel drive car. So yeah, very satisfying to drive. It does have one pedal driving available to it as well, and it's the good one pedal in that it'll bring the car to a complete stop if you lift off the throttle, not just bring it down to a slow speed crawl. But the frustration with that one pedal driving is that it has to be switched on every time you restart the car. It doesn't have a memory in this vehicle, and that's one of the bugbears I have about it. I always go for one pedal driving because it's just cool. And I also want to switch off in this particular car the very strong and stroppy lane keeping assist. It's very intrusive, and it really gives a big tug on the steering wheel if it thinks you're making an incorrect move, changing lanes or cutting a corner or something like that. Yeah, and I have to turn that off every single time as well. So the fact that this car does not have a memory for the driver settings that I prefer is a very big frustration. The fit and finish seems pretty good. Hard plastics generally everywhere, except the top of the dashboard itself is rubberized, and there's padded vinyl on the top of the center console box here, and also on the door pulls and things like that. But generally it's it's a serviceable bunch of surfaces you encounter with the MG4. It's a very tranquil environment in here, even at highway speed on the way down here, 110 kilometre an hour posted speed. Car's very quiet, not much tyre noise, very little wind noise. So yeah, it's a very comfortable place to spend time, and everybody's got plenty of room. The motor has 150 kilowatts of power and 250 newton meters of torque, and that torque of course is available all the time. So roll-on acceleration is great. 0 to 100 they quote 7.2 seconds, and yeah, out in the open road, overtaking or giving it a bit of a squirt out of a corner, you know, as I say, it's rear-wheel drive, so you can feel that rear wheel, that rear axle doing the work, which is a really nice feeling. And the car, as I say, is a very satisfying car to drive in a kind of a sporty manner. It has a 500 kg tow limit, so whether it's a braked or unbraked trailer, 500 kgs is the maximum pull you can assign to this vehicle. And it weighs about 1,670 kgs. It's got, funnily enough, perfect 50-50 front-rear weight distribution, which is nice. And it has vehicle-to-load ability too, so you can power kettles and camping equipment and things like that from the rear of the vehicle where the charging is done. It doesn't come with a cable for vehicle to load, but you can buy that as an accessory. So if you do a lot of picnics and let's say want to blow up an airbed or something like that, vehicle to load might be something that's really attractive to you. Yeah, I've found it a pretty easy thing to live with, apart from the frustrations of these little functions on the in-car entertainment system. That's really the only downside I can see for the MG4, because as a dynamic device, this electric vehicle is really, really good. Quick update, I've just spent half an hour reading the handbook. That's made a few things clearer, and I do understand what some of these buttons can be assigned to do. So MG, please cut me some slack. I have endeavoured to find out how best to access all the great functionality of this MG4. I'm not sure I've entirely succeeded, but I've come some way. So yeah, there is a handbook, it's in the glove box. My advice is spend some time with that before you spend too much time with your MG4, and you'll get a lot of extra benefits out of that. Oh, postscript number 2, did you see how good a turning circle this has? Did you see that in the car park? This thing can turn in a really, really tight turning circle, which is great for city driving, of course. U-turns in narrow streets, no problem. Excellent. And the other thing I wanted to mention was nice horn. A dual tone horn. Yeah, so lots to recommend the MG4.